Anyway, we're here to talk about vacation rentals and loyalty, and I'm joined here today by Scott Shatford, CEO of AirDNA, and Vanessa de Souza Lage, co-founder and chief marketing officer at Rentals United. So apologies about that, guys, but thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
Great. So as we've heard over and over again in this pandemic, short-term rentals have really proven this bright spot. And my first question to you guys is, has the pandemic fueled a need for loyalty programs in rentals? Are they going to become more valuable in this new reality that we're entering?
I can start.
Vanessa, let's start with you.
Okay, go for it. So I think we need to really differentiate when we talk loyalty and rentals, because we have lots of different types of rentals in our world, right? So you have, for example, if we take the example of leisure coastal rentals in areas like the Algarve in Portugal, or the French Riviera, or some of the wonderful areas in Florida or Canada, Ontario, we see a lot of repeat customers. So a lot of repeat guests coming to these areas, and some of these property managers that I speak to that in these areas, they tell me, we get 80% return visitors. Families that constantly go back even to the same vacation rental. So that's on one side, and then you have the other end of the scale, where you have larger property managers that I think have tried to do loyalty programs based on basically what hotels have done, based on repeat stays. And I mean, this year, repeat stays, there's none, right? Since last year there hasn't been any stays, so I don't think loyalty for them this year is going to be a simple and effective. So I think no, I don't think it's heightened it in the short run, at least. And I also think we need to contemplate who we're talking to when we talk loyalty. But I do think it has a heightened need to rethink it. Rethink it also for the urban property managers, of which there are very many who have very struggled last year. How can we rethink it? And what we need is disruptive startups, like the one you just put on stage, and new ideas of how to do it.
Right. Yeah. Scott, yes. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Under the context of COVID, loyalty is not something that you hear discussed very often. It's been very much a sort of a world of the haves and the have-nots. And in these destination markets, drive-to markets, there's been so much demand that they haven't had any time to think about loyalty, or no need to actually implement any sort of loyalty program. And on the other hand, there's been these urban markets that can't, they couldn't discount themselves into a single booking, in Manhattan in a one-bedroom apartment. And so there just really hasn't been a very stable marketplace, right? I think about loyalty programs being a part of a very, mature and stable sort of a business where you're looking for incremental gains on retention and return visitors. And in the short-term rental world, and I guess really in lodging generally, it's just been so unstable that this is not really a point of conversation right now. The one place you do hear about it sometimes is when people are looking for cleanliness or looking for standards. You do see a lot more repeat bookings these days, or direct bookings these days. I think, a lot of people attribute that to them. If you're at Vacasa and you stay at those properties, you have some sort of certainty that there's going to be a level of standards of cleanliness, and they're going to be, adhering to the COVID standards, where you don't really maybe anticipate that or expect that with another property. But generally, I think, short-term rentals is immature, it's young. Loyalty programs has not really been figured out in this industry in any real way. And we get to some of those reasons here.
Right. So taking a bit what you said about, the market's immature and the challenges there, but also looking at how rentals have really boomed in this pandemic. For rental providers, would you say the landscape is more now rentals versus other rentals, before when it was always rentals versus hotels? How do you sort of look at that distribution between what rental companies are doing versus hotels and what the competition is?
Has it really been hotels versus rentals?
To a degree, yes. But
well, isn't it always been that we need to for the best for our travel needs, right? We choose the accommodation based on what we need. And I don't know if you remember this study that Marriott did with their loyalty members. There's like 130 million members, and they found that close to 30% of these members said that they also would like to travel in vacation rentals. So I don't know if it's really a versus thing, but recently what we have noticed is a lot of conversions between the two types. So on one side, hotels, looking to admit, to be more creative, especially in COVID times, working spaces, community centers, etc. And on the other side, we have the vacation rental world, especially the urban ones, looking to up their game and be more professional, and especially safety, as you were saying, is also a huge one. Cleanliness, we had to up our game. So I think conversion is more like a versus as where we stand now. But when it comes to rentals against rentals, there I think the competition is going to be extremely fierce, and only professional property managers are going to survive the next few years, I think. And when I say professional, I mean the guys that really treat their property management as a business, their property management company as a business. We had, in the past, lots of moms and pops companies, and I think those sadly, are less likely to survive with the fierce competition that we're looking at the moment.
Okay, right. Scott, care to chime in?
Yeah, I think Vanessa, you nailed it, right? It's all about the purpose of the travel, right? And it has not been often where, you're going on a leisure trip for a week into a location, and personal, at least, because I work in the industry, but I'm not really deciding between a hotel and a short-term rental. I'm going to Airbnb, I'm going to Vrbo, and I'm making my decision, based off the purpose of my trip. How long am I going to be there? What are my needs? How big is my party? All those sorts of things. And so I don't know if that really has changed the dynamic at all, the pandemic, in terms of how people are going through this choice of when they're booking a trip. If you're going to go to urban destination and you're going to be, traveling, if you're going to be there for one night, I don't think anybody's looking at Airbnb to book that stay, right? You're going to be looking at a hotel. If you're going to be staying for an extended period of time, you're probably looking for a short-term rental or something that you can get settled in to a little bit more. So I'm not sure if, the pandemic's really changed that thought process. Obviously, it's just changed the amount of people doing leisure travel versus business travel, which has given a huge leg up to the short-term rental industry as people are looking for, more privacy, more space when they are doing that leisure travel right now. But I think when the world resumes and everybody's vaccinated, I think it'll be, generally the same competition we saw before in that regard.
Okay. I want to jump on something Vanessa said about, the professionally managed ones are going to be the winners in this, and we're going to lose the mom and pop. Just in terms of loyalty and giving those mom and pop type businesses a leg up, is there room for loyalty with those smaller providers? And if so, what does that look like? And how could they use a loyalty program, for example, to help them stay in business?
Personally, I think what was your earlier, Spencer Lee said it's not about size in his world. Here, it's definitely about size. I would say. Okay. I don't think a small independent. It's the size of product. How many rentals you have, and you got to remember in our world, it's very fragmented. We have. I run this list of the top 50 property managers in the world, and the top 50 have around 400K rentals. But it's said to be there to be 10 million properties around the world. So it goes to show that it's very small. We run really small property management companies. And as a result, it's very hard, I would say, to with such amount of product to increase and to want people to come back to you. Right? I don't think it's worked with hotel either. I don't know if there is. Do you know of a loyalty program for independent hoteliers? I don't think there is one that's really flourished. And I think we have the same problem in that case.
I think it's, it's an ambition that a lot of these short-term rental operators have, no matter what their size is that, whether they have, you have to have some sort of scale, right? Called 100 plus properties. But, the real challenge is that when you go to book one of these properties, you're not going to Vacasa first. You're not going to Turnkey or AvantStay or something like that. The product has to be so much better that when you start your search, you're not starting, location, Airbnb, location, and then like trying to figure out your best deal, but you're going to AvantStay and you're saying, I love that property so much. It's such a great experience. I don't care if I'm going to Austin or Palm Springs or Temecula, right? And I don't see very many travelers doing that at the moment, but that's what their ambitions are, is that you're not going to go to an OTA first. You're going to come to their platform first because you want to see where their product is and what's available on their site. Is that going to happen? I mean, I think it happens now more than it may be in the future, right? I think short-term rentals are all about choice, and loyalty is, something different than that. Loyalty is really restricting your choice, right? And so I think short-term rentals is really about, picking one of those 10 million properties and not picking that one operator that you like. And that's sort of the rub in this sort of creating loyalty in short-term rental space.
But having said that, I mean, loyalty, they do loyalty with their owners. So that's what I found. Many property managers say they didn't invest so much in branding and marketing and loyalty towards guests, but they do tend to invest in loyalty towards owners and have fully fledged loyalty programs in order to keep owners to working with them as competition is fierce out there.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, just looking at the different tactics rental providers could use, how do you kind of view the concepts of discounts or rewards or referrals within this space? How can a provider really assess what their needs might be, and how do they promote that? How could they even determine that such a program would work, for example?
I think this one's a tough one, and Vanessa, hopefully you have a good idea, because I don't really have a good one either. I think all I see right now is discounts at the moment. You see people that have captured the email address, that they're doing the remarketing campaign, they're giving you 20% off your next stay, and that's really all I've seen in the industry. We don't really have loyalty programs. Like, you don't have the get 9 burritos and get your 10th free, right, sort of situation. We don't really have that in that short-term rental industry. So I haven't really seen anything that works, and it's just about what we talked about. It's about scale. It's about the complexities of marketing to these people in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would test if I was a property manager today, and wanting to do something like this, I would test every type of reward possible, see what works, and also turn to these disruptive tech companies out there that we need more of. But there are a few. Like, for example, there's a company called Currency Alliance. I don't know if you've heard of, and they look at exchanging, so you can use a certain loyalty program and use these points on another loyalty program, which I think is really interesting. So you're kind of teaming together with others as opposed to just offering your own points. And the same with another company called Bidroom. It's like OTA / membership program. And with that, it makes a lot of sense to kind of invest into something that's bigger than just, I would say, your own, possibly.
Right. Yeah. I want to turn a bit to establishing trust with your brand, because everybody knows that Airbnb is the name in the space, and maybe you've had a good experience with them, maybe you've had a bad experience with them. What are the challenges to establish trust with a brand, knowing what people's preconceptions might be, and how can you sort of distinguish yourself in a space that is so dominated by Airbnb and Vrbo?
Yeah, I can take a crack at this one, Vanessa, first. I mean, we've talked about some of the challenges, right? It is just scale. I think what we hear in the industry most often is consistency. And I think in short-term rentals, that's what's lacking the most, is the consistency in the experience. You don't know if you're booking with a single host sort of property manager versus a large property manager, what that experience is going to be. And every time you book an Airbnb, you always know that there's probably going to be a hiccup somewhere, whether that's in the guest communications, whether in the checking into the property, whether that's something related to the cleanliness of the property, or whatever it is, right? And so that's really what they're trying to solve in short-term rental first, is the consistency, the booking, that stay. I don't think that, I think that's going to be table stakes pretty soon. I think that is already becoming table stakes. And so how to differentiate yourself is a bit more complicated. Like, how are you going above and beyond? I've got some good ideas, but maybe Vanessa will chime in there.
I like that. Yes, well, I've seen various ways that property managers create brands, right? There are some property managers that do product lines. They go, we have budget, we have a mid, and we have a luxury kind of line, which enhances the brand. We have various lines. Then you have the guys that do property ratings, their own property ratings, but based on complicated algorithm. And I'm thinking Sykes Holiday Cottages in particular. Then we have those that own or kind of are able to furnish the rental, and they then bang on making sure that when you come in, it looks like your brand. So, from one apartment to the next, it's going to be the same. But mostly, and I totally agree with Scott on that, it's mostly based on, the guest experience. Most of them say, the beauty of vacation rental is the fact that every single rental is different, and how we can differentiate ourselves to the rest is with the guest experience that we give. And that comes from, using technology, like your home automation, your keyless entries, and you know that when you go to this brand, you don't have to wait for someone, or the way the messaging, how instantly you're taken into this world as you do the booking, etc. So guest experience is number one, how they like to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Are there ways to drive loyalty that also supports local businesses in the area? And what the partnerships or anything like that could come about to boost the economy, more or less?
I think it's about. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's all right. I think on the experiences, I think it's a no-brainer, right? There's a lot of there's tours and activities. There's lots of these, especially in higher-end homes, like the in-home sort of cooking experience, chef experience, whatever that might be. So I think that's the no-brainer. I don't think that connective tissue is as good as it could be. I think it'll definitely get better in terms of how you're planning your whole trip, the whole connected trip, as people talk about. So you're doing that all in a single sort of platform, and you have all your days planned, all your nights planned, and where you're staying all planned at the same time. So I think that's a really interesting competitive advantage that everybody's trying to strive for. Nobody's really been able to achieve, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I think it's all complicated, the loyalty, because again, uniqueness and loyalty for me are these totally opposite sides of the spectrum. And so it's really hard to figure out how to get a lot of loyalty around all of your trips in the future while still creating this really unique, once in a lifetime experience. Where is that? You got to give somewhere, right? I think that's always the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, there's a few platforms out there that help you upsell your tours and activities, right? And they're very clever at it, I think, and they do all the guest communications, etc. But I haven't seen anything that resembles a loyalty with them. So there's no such thing as you pay for your points, or because you stayed, therefore you get your free pickup from the airport. I haven't seen that, so to be proven wrong, but I don't think that exists yet. Right. Via third-party services that would kind of encourage you to think of it that way. But we're the beginning of our journey in a way, in terms of technology.
Right. Yeah. So we're running up on time here in a bit, but so my takeaway here is that there are a lot of challenges to loyalty in rentals. So my final question for you guys will be, a year from now, how is loyalty in the rental space going to change? Like, what do you sort of see the next step being, and what will that look like as we move through this pandemic?
How it looks like? Hopefully, there will be some programs that can inspire others to do something for the larger property managers, and maybe not just based on repeat stays. Something a bit more clever than that.
Yeah, I think, we talked about some of the challenges. Yeah, it's difficult, right? Because I've always thought that the hotel industry and loyalty program is really, your business travel subsidizing your leisure travel, right? And so the opportunities will only exist, in my opinion, where there is maybe like a Sonder style company, which is, nice, big, urban places that accommodate both the leisure and a business trip. right? And that's just the challenge. There's not really the economics that makes sense, in my opinion, in the short-term rental space, because people are booking a trip twice a year, right? And they're always going to be very specific trips, and you have to be exactly in that location with exactly the right inventory. And so it's hard. I think you've got to start where you have this nice mix of business and leisure travel, and you can figure out how the economics of that work, where businesses, the corporate credit card is financing your expensive midweek stays to then sort of subsidize your weekend stays. And so I think it has to start there. I don't think it's going to start in the 4-bedroom homes on the coast. I don't see the opportunity there.
Great point. All right. Well, we are at time, but Scott, Vanessa, thank you both so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.